BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Friday, another Anything Goes Friday. Welcome to the show. Just a couple of quick announcements before we begin. The first is that there will be a debunking video coming out this weekend, most likely on Sunday to anybody who's listening to these things as they come out. And there is a Zodiac Killer debunking series on this channel where I talk about some Zodiac suspects that I think are absolutely not the right person, or perhaps in some cases had nothing at all to do with the Zodiac Killer mystery at all. In short, their accusers are simply either mistaken or in some cases perhaps genuine frauds. That'll be coming out on Sunday. And there will also be somewhat of a bonus episode coming out tomorrow. That's Saturday to anyone, as I said, who's listening to these things as they come out day by day. For once, I was actually in a very big predicament. Maybe it's not really once, more like the second time, where I just simply could not decide on which Anything Goes topic to use this week. So I decided to do both of them, and there will be one coming out on Saturday night, and I think that it's probably not the most responsible thing to do because already going to be a little bit busy and overwhelmed with some things off the internet, but I really wanted to cover these things because there are some discussions that I wanted to have and to share the material with you guys. But always reminding you that you can download the show for free at LaunchPad 1. There's a link to that in the description box. You can download the pure podcast version that's audio only. Take it on the go anywhere and anyhow. If you would like to download the video version, you can use YouTube Premium, but for that you have to pay for it. LaunchPad 1 is free, and a great way to support the channel in addition to just listening to some more content is to go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but totally fictional. Amazon.com, Killer on a White Horse. And there is always the Teespring page. Feel free to have a look at some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. The namesake for this episode comes from a couple conversations that I was having recently. I had talked about this on one of the AMAs that somebody asked me, did you ever play the game What's in Ned's Head growing up? And I said no, and I Googled it when I got home, and I saw what the game was, What's in Ned's Head? Because to any of the new listeners, my name is Ned, and that's how they approached me about it. It looks absolutely disgusting. And then we talked about a different show called Ned's Newt, and that one I was familiar with. And the same person asked me, though, did you ever watch the program Ned's Declassified Survival Guide? And I had completely forgotten about that one. No, I've never seen that show. But, yeah, so we got on that subject. And then I began to think, because my name is Ned, what would I put out in a survival guide if I had to create one? And there's that question app on Facebook. It's not really an app, it's just like a little question game or something. And I used to do it actually a lot in 2018. I don't even know if it's still up there now, but it would always ask you the question, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself a life lesson or something like that, what would you say? I know I said they ask all the time, but I just forgot the exact wording. More like, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? And I'm going to share some of those things in this episode here, and just some experiences, more or less. I am the first person to admit I am not a psychologist, I am not a life coach, nothing of the sort, absolutely not. And I was reading the book The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi, who talks about a lot of these similar subjects, and he also introduces his book that way by saying, I'm not a psychologist, I am not anything of the sort, I'm just a guy who has connected a few dots. And I think that just sharing the stories of personal experience is a very good way to go about that, because it is a personal experience. That's all it is. And I really remember having that kind of epiphany when I was trying to write a novel well before Killer on a White Horse came out. This is an unpublished novel that is rotting in the gutter of Moscow, no joke. And I was 22, and for the first time I actually created this autobiographical character, and she does appear in Killer on a White Horse, and there's a character in that book named Joanna, and it was actually based on a character that I had created in 2010, supposed to be like my a story about some of my life experiences if it were told from the perspective of a woman. I wish I still had it, but sadly I do not. And I was writing my experiences, and then I was thinking, wow, this is the first time I'm not writing about fantasy or writing about any type of absolutely purely fictional character that is unconnected to me. I'm just writing my life experiences, and of course the character is a girl, not a male character, but no one can tell me that this is wrong. I actually lived through these things, and I was like, wow, I mean, that's just a really different um, way of looking at life. And it's that concept of just writing what you know. But on that note, the first point that I would tell my 18-year-old self, or just to say some type of life hack, if I could advise myself in the past, what would I say? Go abroad, go international. As soon as I had turned 18, the first chance you get, leave the country. Not forever, but see the world. Connect with the world. Don't wait until you're 24, whenever I did it. Go see the world and try and connect with some other countries, even if it's Canada or Mexico, or you're going to some little college on the border of Canada or Mexico, something like that. Do that, because that will just improve your overall well-being. That would be the first one. There's a YouTube channel out there called Bulldog Mindset, which is hosted by a guy named John Sonmez, and he can provide the source material for point number 2, and that is learn a martial art. He did a video that was talking about a very similar subject, about what he would have done differently if he had been in high school, and one of them was learn a martial art, and I'll say point number 3 in just a second. But it's because the fitness angle, the confidence angle, and he goes about it in a more of an extreme way when he said that if people do not think that you are capable of physical violence, they will not respect you. And part of me is like, yeah, that's absolutely true. The other part of me is just like, wow, that is just so horribly pessimistic about life. But no matter what, learn a martial art. Learn how to defend oneself, as well as the fitness angle, the confidence angle. And martial arts are so beneficial to the human body, because you not only have to use your physical nature, you're also strengthening the mind, because you have to learn new movements and you have to remember new movements. Martial arts and even dance can be viewed in this way. It can be a form of fitness that is also using the brain very, very extensively. So all of your systems are coming into play. Memory, mental agility, as well as physical agility. All of these things are coming into play at once. And with a martial art, you would actually learn how to defend yourself, how to protect someone. It would just strengthen your overall well-being and so much. I did a lot of reading about martial arts when I was 18, but I never actually got around to going to any type of class or something. But that would be a segue into the third one, because I'm 33 now, and on my 33rd birthday, it was really late at night, the birthday just kind of winding down, and I pulled up a video that I found on Bulldog Mindset about, well, what do you do when you're 33 years old? And I guess John had been through those experiences, and he said, start a business. But he brought it up because it was also in that segment about talking to your 18-year-old self. And he's like, that's something that he really missed out on as a teenager. Start a business. And he said that was a big regret, that don't get a part-time job, don't work 20 hours a week at a fast food joint. Start a business. Find something that you can do to make money with on the side. And there are a couple reasons for this, because number one, Warren Buffett said very clearly, you will never get rich if you don't make money while you sleep. But also the creative side, or just turning your passion into an economic powerhouse, earning money from something that you actually love and appreciate, and all of those reasons. And I did a lot of planning about that. I did a lot of kind of daydreaming about what type of business I was going to do when I was in um, high school and so on. Yeah, but that's just like daydreaming when I should have been paying attention. I was a terrible student when I was growing up because was just immature, and I really grew out of that in my early 20s, and I began paying a little bit more attention, and I, I just didn't really have the type of passion for the subjects that were in school, and I didn't recognize that sense of dutifulness that, all right, I need to get A's on all my papers because that's a good thing to do. I was more like, this is boring, so I'm not really going to do it. And then my performance really suffered, and there are also a couple of reasons um, that are kind of difficult to get into, but I might as well just say one of them now. I really excelled at memory-oriented subjects. Like, if there was a lot of memorization involved, then I would excel at that. Like, if I just had to remember some facts or some dates or like a place name, this person did this, what then? 1588 was the Spanish Armada, but I didn't even know what really happened on that date or time and so on. But if it was memory involved, then I would excel at that, and that came very effortlessly. So when I actually had to do something like write a paper on something, or write an essay, or do anything that was application based, particularly in math and science, and to a certain extent history, that would be extremely difficult because I'm like, well, this memory-based activity came so effortlessly. Now I have to use a different section of my brain that isn't coming to me effortlessly. And I would just kind of be like, oh, whatever, I'll just get a C. So now I could talk about that for like 4 hours, but I'll save you guys and I'll just leave you with the short version. And at that time, though, this brings us to the next point on the list. Something that is one of my own, just, I was about to say pure observation, but it's a little bit more blended in with some other influences. Kind of like how there's a snowball effect and the snowball can just get bigger and bigger as it all comes together. Well, it would be avoid all mean people. If someone is mean to you, they don't care about you. They are being mean because they're trying to exercise power. And you don't have to keep people in your life, especially non-family members, who are being mean to you. And I frequently talk about that episode of Coffee with Chris, which was hosted by a guy named Christopher Nemelka, who presented it just like that. He said, if you're mean, I don't want to be around you, and I don't want you around me. Mean to anyone. Mean to men, mean to women, mean to black people, mean to white people, mean to vegans, mean to meat eaters. If you're mean to anyone, I don't want to be around you, and I don't want you around me. And there's another similar statement that was made actually by the former football player Maurice Claret, who turned into a motivational speaker, and he talked about all of the problems that he experienced. Some people who remember that guy would probably be shaking their heads right now, like, why the hell are you talking about that guy? He was an NFL failure, and it's just that. He tells his story why, and he said, I will look at your friends, and I will tell you your future. If you surround yourself with mean people, you will find that you begin to emulate their behaviors, even if it's not an exact photocopy, but you will copy their mean behaviors, and then you're going to be mean to other people at times when you think that you can get away with it. And I definitely did my share of that, but more importantly, I would tolerate the mean behavior that they would project toward me. And looking back at it now that I'm in my 30s, I would be like, absolutely not. there's no way that I would ever let someone make an insult like that, even if they're trying to pass it off as humor when you know that it's not. But that should even be its own point on the list. That you can tell when someone is only trying to be funny or trying to be mean. And like I would just say, draw a very clear line about humor versus rude behavior. And I think I understood that one, though, very clearly when I was perhaps from the dawn of my existence on Earth, and most people do. I would present that to you guys as not only a challenge question, but a bold statement. I mean, I think that this is true, but can you always tell if somebody is joking or not? And I mean, like, if you're actually talking to them face to face, not like a text message or some type of DM on Instagram, but if you're having a conversation with somebody, can you tell if someone makes a statement only to be funny or if there is a type of rude undertone? I mean, I think that most of the time you can, and it follows this type of I measure rule. You will know when they cross the lines. You'll know it when you see it. You'll know it when you hear it. You'll know when someone is making a joke, and if it's actually done in a mean way or if it is done in a friendly way, because context, facial expressions, tone of voice, personality, and all of that. I began the episode by talking about the writer Rollo Tomassi, who is also the host of The Rational Male here on YouTube. He has 4 books out now, and they're actually done all on more or less different aspects of his observations of life. The Rational Male Volume 1 through 4, but each one has a different title, like Preventive Medicine, and his latest book is actually on religion. He was the guy that said that he's just someone who connected a few dots, and he created a list of rules called the Iron Rules of Tomassi. And the one on that list that stood out the most to me was never under any circumstance self-deprecate. Like, never put yourself down. And that is the stuff that they need to be teaching in high schools, or especially junior high, because even back in those days when I was much younger, I would make fun of myself and people would be laughing. And I also incorporated that into a short story once when one character says, I know I'm not stupid, I just do this to get laughs. And I had times when I was wondering, why am I behaving this way? I mean, the things that I'm saying about myself when I put myself down, I know they aren't true, but I liked getting the type of humorous laughter. I thought it was a good thing to be funny, right? Well, firstly, not exactly, not necessarily, not all the time. And secondarily, I mean, it's just that should be a rule. Never put yourself down. Now, I did say before that I was a terrible student. Yeah, I was in the past, not now. I mean, that if you want to like build on life experiences, sure. I was a terrible student in the past. Now, I'm actually a really good student at everything I try to learn. And it's just that because people will not interpret any type of self-deprecation as, oh, this person's just trying to do something humorous. Oh, this person's just doing this to get laughs. No, they will view it as a form of weakness, and it is so essential to the way that you conduct yourself in interpersonal dynamics. Sometimes I actually wish this was possible, though, that I could just go back in time and talk to a younger version of myself, and I would just say just that. Never self-deprecate. Never put yourself down just to get laughs. Never tell embarrassing stories about yourself just to get laughs. Never reveal too much information about your personal or private life or private experiences because you think it's funny. People will not interpret it in a humorous way. They will interpret it as a form of weakness. And I think that stand-up comedy is a very good example of this, because when you see a stand-up comedian on a stage, you know that they are telling jokes. You know that they are there to entertain you. You know where the boundaries are. And it's not so much that it's because it is funny. It's because you know that it's a performance. And then if you start acting that way in real life, people don't know if it's a performance or not. They don't, or they think that that's really you. Or even if they know that you're just trying to be funny, then they're still going to try and criticize you in that particular way. Back when I was in college, there was this legendary story that happened the year before I started about how they paid Andy Dick, the comedian, who isn't a very funny comedian, mind you, but they paid him an enormous amount of money. Everybody was saying that it was $20,000, but then it turned out that that was just storytelling. It was actually much less than that. I don't even really remember the exact number, but they paid him a large amount of money to come to the college to do a comedy show, and he started making fun of a girl in the audience, and she ran out of the room crying, and that's bad, right? Do not misunderstand me. That's bad. But the reason why that happened is because what he was saying wasn't funny to her. She didn't find it funny. However, as a fundamental rule, and I heard this from the comedian Jim Norton when he was actually involved in a type of free speech debate, he said, if the intention is only to be funny, anything is fair game. In the world of free speech or in the world of material, using any type of language that you can imagine, talking about any particular subject, if the intention is only to be funny, anything is fair game. So I think that succeeds in the world of stand-up comedy because you know that a person is on stage to make people laugh, and you know no matter what, whether the stories they're telling are true or false, it's just to make you laugh, whether they're exaggerating them or not. It's just to make you laugh. It's just to be funny. And if they break character like the way that Michael Richards guy did once and he started insulting the audience and then he walked away, that would be an example of someone crossing the line. And the intention isn't just to be funny, it's to insult people. But the point is that there are very clearly drawn boundaries. So when you incorporate those types of elements into your personal life, it makes trouble. And I mean, I'll tell you this firsthand. I had a horrible problem with that all the way, I think, until I was about 25. I would just be involved with humor that people thought was really weird. And on a conscious level, I was just trying to make people laugh, so I thought, but I was doing it in a way that really confused a lot of people. And, well, I'll say something about that in just a second, but the part about humor is heavily connected to something that I read in a book by Robert Greene, the psychologist, when he said, if you are trying to be funny all the time, people will view you as just that, a joke. You will turn yourself into a joke. And yeah, humor is a great thing, comedy is a great thing, making people laugh is a great thing, but if you overdo it, they're not going to take you seriously at other times when you expect them to. But to look at some, I guess, experiences that are a little bit more technical and borderline academic, I learned about the Big Five personality traits from Jordan Peterson. And I would just project this onto my younger self. Learn the Big Five personality traits. Ocean: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And I have found this so valuable when it comes to understanding myself. I have found this so valuable when it comes to understanding other people. Do an assessment on that or just read about them, and it tells you what you want. And I know that Jordan Peterson is a controversial psychologist. However, it was actually just last year, even though I've been following him for a couple years now, I found one of his lectures when he was talking about using that Big Five model to find out what you want in life. If you're high in trade openness, you want lots of creative projects. If you're high in conscientiousness, you want structured and organized living. If you're high in agreeableness, you want an intimate partner. If you're high in extroversion, you want many platonic friends. And if you're high in neuroticism, you want security. And then you can learn about what it is that you are truly looking for. But one observation that I've never heard from anybody else is partner the Big Five personality traits with The Anatomy of Love by Dr. Helen Fisher, which more or less states that there are four governing components of brain chemistry: testosterone, estrogen, dopamine, and serotonin. Dopamine is, for the sake of that discussion, talking about fueling your own excitement. Serotonin is about social situations, and testosterone and estrogen, I think, speak for themselves, masculine and feminine, respectively. Most people are high in two of those, and they're the governing components of brain chemistry. And I don't really know how widely accepted Dr. Helen Fisher's work is in terms of the academic community. But ever since I read about that, I was also able to understand what she means, governing component of brain chemistry. Not meaning that if you're a man, then your brain is going to be like this, or if you're a woman, or your brain is going to be like that. No, but you're going to be making decisions because of these components in your neurochemistry. They are the guiding forces in your decision making. If you're high in dopamine, you're going to do things to fuel your own excitement. If you're high in serotonin, you're going to do things to fuel the collective well being. And if you're high in testosterone, you're going to be very assertive. And if you're high in estrogen, you're going to be very thoughtful. Again, meaning that it's not simply saying that, oh, you have a high estrogen level, then you're going to be thoughtful. Women are more thoughtful than men. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, but if you are a very thoughtful person, then you are estrogen centered. If you do things to fuel your own excitement, you are dopamine centered. It's more like a classification system. But partner that with the big five personality traits and find out, well, are you assertive or not? Are you thoughtful or not? Are you excitable or not? Are you socially aware or not? And then you can learn about how your personality is functioning, how other people's personalities are functioning, and then you can respond to that. But always remember that things like the Big Five personality traits and the anatomy of love, they are perhaps not purely perfect scientific models. There's a lot of flexibility in those. Another one to add to the list would be write down your values. Find out what you think is important. Truly sit down one day, whether you like to use notepad paper or something electronic, and determine, what do you think is important? What values do you want to stand for? What qualities do you look for in the people that you want for your friends or you want in a significant other? And making a list of the observations, the personality types, behaviors, characteristics of these people. And then if someone is doing something that you believe is contrary to your values, or that is just simply what you believe to be bad, you don't have to interact with them. You don't have to associate with them. And you don't have to keep them in your life. I mean, like, you don't have to put up with anything from someone who is a bad person, especially if you're not related to them. If you have a crappy boss or something, you can find a different job. If you have a friend who is doing some annoying behaviors, you do not have to maintain that friendship. You can find a way to get out of it, or you can just simply stop seeing the person, because if they're doing bad things that are contrary to your values, or you simply do not want to put up with, tolerate, accept, encourage, or have anything to do with something that is against your values, then you don't have to keep them around at all. You can walk away. You can end their type of inappropriate behavior. Now, this is mostly a true crime channel here on YouTube, Black Box Online Radio, always inviting you to like and subscribe. I have another channel called AstroPsych400 where I did a 12-part series on astrology, talking about how there are different personality types that could be connected some way somehow to the astrological signs. And even though I'm a huge skeptic in that, next year I'm hoping to do some more episodes on AstroPsych400, and I might be doing the podcast for sleep over there, where I'm going to be talking about some similar things like today's episode, but I think that this would have fit in pretty well, because looking at the true crime world and looking at the world of psychology, a big observation I found is that there's that famous expression, right? There are three reasons why people commit crimes: money, sex, and power. The trinity of true crime deviants. But which one is the one that people desire the most out of those three things? Money, sex, or power? What do people really want? Power. And people are all about power. They're about momentary domination. They are about control. They want to be the person who is the deciding factor. And something else that I did learn from Jordan Peterson is that one of the ways a dominance hierarchy gets sorted out, like the power structure in any social group, is who gets to choose the topics of conversation, who gets to use language to create the ideas. And this could happen in a group of friends where one person is always making the decision, no, let's go here, let's do this. And someone else is going to say, well, hey, I would also propose that we do that. And the leader of the group, or the most dominant member of the group rather, is going to be like, how about no, let's do what I say. Or they might just not even hear that person talking at all. So choosing the topics of conversation, and people are going to do this. And back in 2020, I did an episode called What is a Toxic Personality? And I'm sure you have some concept of a toxic personality. Someone who is doing abusive, nasty, unfair, and even just simply regularly mean behaviors to somebody, and they're still expecting and wanting to be in a relationship with that person or in a friendship with that person. And the reason why I did that episode is because every source online had its own definition of what a toxic personality was. But the answer there's an answer to a better question, I think, and that is, how do toxic people find the individuals in their lives? In the world of narcissism, they talk about the word supply, like it's not even a boyfriend and a girlfriend. There's the narcissist and the supply. Well, how does the toxic personality find this supply person who is the victim of their emotional abuse? And the points that were brought up were that they are, or that the person is too warm and sunny and they're a good listener. And to actually give a little bit more clarity about being a warm and sunny person, someone who is very compassionate and a good listener. And this ties directly back into that point at the beginning about learn a martial art, sharpen your mental agility and your physical agility. And yeah, if you can kick the other person's ass, they probably aren't going to be so mean to you. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, evil knows no bounds. Let's not kid ourselves. But more importantly, I mean, that's something that I would definitely tell myself. Just don't be too compassionate and don't be a good listener. Those things might seem like they are good ideas, and society definitely encourages you to believe in that stuff, but it makes you vulnerable and susceptible to other people's manipulations. And Rollo Tomasi talks a lot about this when he says that our educational system pretty much encourages boys to be just that, to be a well-behaved, polite, compassionate, good listener, and it encourages girls to be anything you want. You can do anything you want, right? But that doesn't necessarily work in the strongest balance. And yes, of course, they tell boys they can do anything they want to, and of course they encourage girls to be nice, warm, compassionate, good listeners. However, once you get to the teen years and adulthood, somebody isn't always going to, not everyone is going to follow along with those types of behaviors. What if someone is being nasty to you? What if one of your peers is trying to start a fight with you and you're a nice, warm, compassionate, good listener? How do you defend yourself? And there is almost no preparation at all for material like that in, well, the educational system about defending yourself. They say, oh yeah, kill him with kindness. Use your words to get out of a fight. Tell the teachers. Yeah, right. Yeah, like, those things actually work. If those things actually worked, then people would do them. But this relates to a couple of different points right in a row. And the first is being aware of your mental faculties. Talking about killing people with kindness or using words. Becoming aware of your mental faculties. The process of mindfulness. Being aware of your own mind. And I was reading the book A Mindful Nation by Tim Ryan last year, and it talks about how sometimes you get so overwhelmed with emotion that you become distracted. And I said there were 2 points. And Jesse Lee Peterson, who is the host of the show The Fallen State, talks about this. And he is a very controversial figure as well, but he said, any time you get lost in your imagination, that's bad. You should not be doing it. And I'm almost 99.9% sure that he's not talking about kids daydreaming about riding dragons and, having like imaginary battles in the sky and so on. Maybe not imagination like that, but anyone, teenage years to adulthood, anytime you get lost in your imagination, that's bad. Because it's like a mindful nation. That's what it's teaching you not to do. Not to get overwhelmed with emotion to the point where you aren't paying attention, where you aren't aware of what's going on, where you're just distracted by everything in your own mind and not in reality. But also, the stuff Peterson brings up is that if you're getting lost in your imagination, there are 2 things that are happening, and only 2. You are either putting yourself down or you're telling yourself that you're better than someone else. And that's why I said I don't think he's talking about daydreaming about slaying dragons in the sky and so much. I think he means getting lost in your imagination when you're talking about real life people. Like if you're thinking about how a coworker was mean to you, how a fellow classmate was mean to you. But also when a coworker complimented you, when a fellow classmate complimented you, he simply says, doubt every thought, doubt everything that you're thinking. They're all lies. Because it's just that. You're either telling yourself that you're better than someone, or you're putting yourself down. And that's a very difficult way to put it all together. But with the appropriate amount of cleverness, I think that you can actually find that there is somewhat of a defendable claim in that, and it isn't baseless. He was the first person I ever heard to say that, though. Anytime you get lost in your imagination, that's bad. And a mindful nation just simply wants you to be aware of the present. The fallen state is sharing all those things as well. It wants you to be in the present. You are not your thoughts. I mean, you are not the person who is getting involved in those imaginary discussions. That isn't really happening. So your mind shouldn't be drifting away. And I would love to just read your responses to that question. If you could give yourself a life lesson when you were younger, what would it be? If you could just share your experiences with your younger self, what would that be? And to share some things on a more personal note, when I moved away from home at the age of 18 and I went to college and I was living in the dorms, I thought that it was going to be just like what was happening in the movies. And when I would hear people tell their stories about what it's like being at college, I thought it was going to be like the movies where they're going to go to parties and people are going to get really drunk and have a good time, right? Yeah, wrong. Firstly, I don't know why, and this is maybe something that I should doubt in my own thinking, but it seemed like a lot of people just really were boring, and it might be a little bit judgmental, but they just weren't really into doing much of anything. I think it's more about what you're saying about the dominance hierarchies and who gets to choose the topics of conversation and who gets to choose the plans for the evening, the decisions for what the friendship is going to be doing. And then if people have absolute power, what are they going to do? Absolutely nothing. And there's also something that is very important about dominance hierarchies and power structures that I've said before on the channel, and I actually read in a book by Paul Watkins, that was the slowest person in the group can often be the most manipulative, because the slow person is making other people wait for them. The person who's 40 minutes late all the time, the person who always takes the longest to get ready, oh yeah, we can leave, I just have to do this one thing first. that person can be the most manipulative because they're making other people respond to them. And some people get off on that type of power, and they aren't aware of it even. I don't think that's even a conscious thing. They're just kind of doing it because, well, the honest reason is they hate their mothers, but they're also doing it because it's just a behavior and a personality type that they have going on. And I was thinking of two people very specifically that I knew growing up, excuse me, and they would get like that whenever we were just trying to hang out, and I'm like, "Hey, do you want to do like those things that people are doing on the television? Do you want to like go out and do something wild?" And they would be like, "No." And I really had trouble finding an exact adjective for their type of behavior. It's like if I would propose something, they would suddenly become very unenthusiastic or passionless. And it's two different people, actually, my two closest friends from high school, whom I'm not in contact with anymore, mostly. But that was just it. They became unenthusiastic or passionless about anything that I wanted to do. And if when it came to what they wanted to do was mostly just to sit at home, to either watch videos or play video games. And yeah, YouTube was just on the verge of starting out, and there were these other sites before like um, E-Bombs World, Albino Black Sheep, and people would use different types of websites for entertainment, and of course, we were into music and so on, and sometimes it seemed like we were actually having a good time staying at home, but that's all it was. It's like if someone is truly gaining power over a person, what are they going to do? They're going to do absolutely nothing if the other person is just going along with it, and then they just turn into some type of lethargic slug and so on. So I went to college. I even got into a lot of trouble during my time in college, but I stayed. I kept going. I got my degree, then I got a master's degree, and part of me thinks that I just wish I could go back and program myself and be like, all right, going to college is not what it's cracked up to be. It won't necessarily help you get a job. That's something else that we need to remind people. But also that if you're looking for that experience that you're watching in TV dramas made for teenagers, as well as all of these feel-good inspirational movies, or just the college party movies and so on, that's not real, that's all fictional. A lot of people are just that. They're the unenthusiastic, passionless slugs and so on that don't really want to do anything. And the people that are out doing wild things are already involved with social circles that are way more destructive than you actually want to be part of, because then they know person A who knows person B who knows person C who is a drug lord and so on, and then they are going to get beaten up very severely at some point over the next 6 months. And yes, those things do happen, and then they bring their chaotic nature on you, and eventually they're going to try and sponge off of you. Thankfully, it didn't really come to that point for me, but I mean, to other people I knew who were on that track, who met ABC person, yeah, they got caught up in that, and I was mostly just someone who, well, eventually, as I said, discovered YouTube as well, and that would be something that I wish I could also put on the list. In 2006, when YouTube launched, I should have been like, some way, somehow, create content from the very beginning. I didn't put out my first YouTube video until 2010, and I tried a couple things in 2011. Now, some people have told me they thought that, well, you seem like a natural podcaster, you seem like a natural narrator, and that really came after the interview that I did with Mike Morford on the Zodiac Killer channel, the Interviews with the Experts series. And someone's like, you and Morph are both natural podcasters. Maybe Morph is. He does a lot of things on the podcast circuit. He has created an enormous amount of shows. I can't speak for him. Maybe he is, but me, absolutely not. It was a work in progress from day one. Back in 2011, I would try to make these little videos that just ended up being 3 minutes long because I would just try to talk normally, like the way I'm talking to you guys now, and it just wouldn't come out. So I would write out a little script for like a 3 minute video, which was really just a podcast, and I had some images going in the background, and those were the days when no matter what you put out on YouTube, you'd get 100 views, and And then a lot of people really didn't like what I was sharing because I was talking about politics. However, I always had this connection to radio. I think it was just because it was always on in the car when we were out driving. But even back in high school, some people told me that they thought they liked the sound of my voice or that I sounded like a radio DJ or announcer or talk show host and so on. And back in 2011, I was listening to a lot of talk radio, all of the famous names on just all sides of the aisle, whether it was a sports show or Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, I mean, all the famous names. And then I thought, like, I could do this. I could really do this. So I sat down with a microphone, just using the Windows sound recorder, and I was trying to record some things and put them out on YouTube. And I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't just talk in a monologue style fashion without a script. And so I would write those little 2 to 3 minute scripts. And then eventually, I'd be able to talk longer and longer without one. And yeah, that was definitely a work in progress and something that I tried to build up on. But I wish I had started in 2006 and just made little 10-minute videos. And even if it wasn't talking, I mean, maybe do something with music or do something with photography, anything. I just wish that I had been involved with the creation. And on an absolute personal note, I'm glad that I went to college, sure, even though it didn't exactly change my life in the ways that I thought, and it was very expensive. My family would have hated this idea, but me, knowing who I am, I wish that I hadn't lived in the dorms. I wish I hadn't gone to a 4-year college immediately, because back when I was 17, I pulled up the map of the United States of America. Maybe it was just the Eastern Seaboard, and I'm here in West Virginia. I went to high school in West Virginia as well, and I saw that there was this community college near the beach in Virginia, and I was like, wow, could you imagine that? Going to a college by the beach, and it was just a community college that was on the map. I don't even remember why I was looking at the map, but I was thinking, wow, that would be a really good place to go. And I had a job, at a restaurant. It was might as well just say the name. It was Pizza Hut. I worked at Pizza Hut as a teenager, and they even said they could transfer me to a different location if I went away to college. And I was like, why don't I just do that? They just transfer to that place by the beach, the closest Pizza Hut there, and then drive to college. Take one class until I can get the in-state tuition at a different place and work mostly full-time, and then just do 1 or 2 classes until I graduate. Even if it takes 6 years or so to get a bachelor's degree, I think that would have been a better experience, because I would find that my social settings wouldn't be completely confined to the university campus, where you're living with your classmates, so to speak, and I think that I would have just had a much better experience seeing coworkers at work and seeing classmates in class, and then at home I'm on my own time, and yeah, I'm somewhat low in extroversion. I don't need to do that all the time. Yeah, if you want to go out and have wild parties, I would go if I were invited, but I wouldn't have had that enormous desire and expectation that, all right, we're supposed to go out and do things, when most people just want to stay in and do nothing. And all right, if the plan is to stay in and do nothing, and the expectation is to stay in and do nothing, then that's what I should have done. And also, I think that would have given me a better academic experience, because at the time I was not a good student. I really got better. Like, I went from being like a C student in high school to being somewhat of a mediocre student in undergrad, but I just didn't understand what a research paper was. I didn't understand what an intellectual academic argument was. And then once I got to graduate school at the age of 24, all of the things began to click together. 23, excuse me, but who's counting? And then things began to fall into place, and I learned how to write academically, and oh, I was a much better student in graduate school. I learned how to do something, and I think that in high school I was just immature, and you could call it laziness, but I don't really think it was. I think it was just certain subjects that were based on memorization came very, very easily to me. So when it wasn't a memorization based subject and it didn't come easily, I didn't I just didn't connect with it. And I was like, oh, well, it's not coming effortless to me. I mean, it must not be for me, and so on. But I said a very particular word there, and that was expectation. I was listening to an episode of Bulldog Mindset, the channel that I've cited numerous times on this one, and John Sonmez also made an interesting observation when he said that the reason why you have friends is because of expectations. And I've never heard anyone say it just like that. But what he said was that even if it's as simple as you expect your friends to be supportive, to be nice, to be kind, to be a good listener, and then when they go against those expectations and they aren't supportive, they aren't nice, they aren't kind, and they are not a good listener, that takes its toll on the friendship, and then eventually your friendship will dissolve or it will just end. The reason why you have friends is because of expectations. I mean, say for example, an expectation. You can talk openly and freely. You can have the same sense of humor. And it really took me a long time to just come to the point and the realization and understanding that sometimes someone is pretending to be your friend, but they aren't your friend. And I didn't quite comprehend it because I've never heard anyone say the exact situation that I've dealt with over and over again. And it was that some people are not looking for friends. They are looking for followers. Like even if it's as simple as they don't want to go out and do anything, they just want to sit down and have you watch videos of their choosing or play the video game of their choosing, then that's it. They don't even want to be your friend. They just want to follow. They just want you to listen to them talk, you to listen to them discuss this subject, you play the game they want, you watch the video that they want. And this can even be done on a larger scale when it actually begins to affect decisions like no, don't move to that apartment. You should move in with me. You should live with me. No, don't eat that. You should eat what I tell you to eat. And even on the smaller things, like don't go to that supermarket. You should go to the one that's closer to my house. Some people do not really want friends. They want a follower. And I've never really heard anyone say it just like that. I just think it's one of my own original observations. But I'm definitely high in trait agreeableness, definitely a dopamine-centered personality. So I guess a large section of time, though, the ages of maybe 16 to 25, I had to make the realization that, and this is all done in retrospect, the reason why I had trouble forming friendships during that time period is being a dopamine-centered personality, not contributing to the collective well-being. Like I was only doing things to feel my own excitement. All that stuff I said about, oh, you're just trying to be funny and so on. No. Or that even if I do want to go out and do wild things, well, no one else in the group wanted to. Doesn't mean that I was right all the time. Other people, it's just that I was doing things because, well, it fuels neurochemistry in your brain. It fuels dopamine. And the thing that actually makes you feel good, as I understand, is not dopamine. It's the endorphins. Dopamine is the precursor to that. I'd cite The Rational Male for that as well. In conclusion, I think that learning about how people think is very valuable. And you'll find that fairness is definitely lacking in the world. And people do have a desire for power. And it doesn't matter what their age is, race, gender, educational background, occupation. People have a desire for power. It doesn't matter how sophisticated they pretend to be or how impoverished they are. People have a desire for power and they want to exercise power over people, or sometimes they just want to have momentary domination. Sometimes they just want to be the person in charge, and that can take its toll on humanity, not even just two people in a social dyad, but all of humanity itself. But I want to hear your stories and your experiences, and what is it like looking back and talking about anything that you've had in life where you had some type of life lesson Please share anything you want in the comment section down below, and anybody can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Those links are in the description box. And I will see you over on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.